Hello everyone, welcome back to the TJOmega channel for day 1148 of our daily content grind, and we are back to the Earthspark episode reviews because Season 3 has dropped, and by Season 3 I mean Season 2 Part 2, but we're renaming it Season 3, so please someone take this seriously and watch this show for the love of God. So we're going to start with the first episode of the new season, The Need for Reed. This is twofold. We have two plots going together very, very quickly in this episode, and the first one revolves around Bumblebee and Breakdown and their friendship. So I really liked this dynamic they introduced in Season 1 that really showed, like, how different the dynamics between Autobots and Decepticons can be with the war being over. Breakdown isn't interested in the chaos and, taking over Earth and whatnot. Really, like, after the war, he just wanted to challenge and race Bumblebee. Like, they became friendly rivals. Bumblebee calls him his best friend. So it's fun to have an episode that really focuses on that dynamic. Right now, that dynamic is being hurt by the fact that the green dome erected by the Maltos at the end of the last season is still up. Like, it has not faded away at all, which is actually cutting a piece of Witwicky off from the rest of the town. No one really addresses the part where, we've disrupted all of life in this town, and we continue to do so for the rest of the season. But it does present a problem because they can't race if they can't be in the same space. The B plot is far more minor because Robbie's missing a comic book. Robbie's just missing a comic book. In this one, this is somewhat important to him because, his life has been absolutely insane since we have picked up this season. So he's just looking for a little bit of normalcy, and I can relate. I think a lot of us can relate, just wanting things to be normal. A lot of us lived through the pandemic. I should hope a lot of us know what it's like to just want things back to normal. So Mo, always trying to help, has concocted a plan. Her cybersleep can get her inside the dome where there's a comic book shop, and since the shop got cut off from the rest of Witwicky just after the comic book came out, they might still have it there. So she is going to go off with Bumblebee to get in. Bumblebee, I'm not happy with the fact that he's kind of using Mo and her good nature here in order to get in just so he can race Breakdown. What he really wants is to get Breakdown out. Because, he's convinced that Breakdown really just doesn't want this whole Decepticon thing. He just wants to be free. He just wants to be free to race. Okay. But he's not honest about his intentions, which is uncomfortable in this series. I don't know, especially because, like, we're supposed to have a strong family dynamic that I'm not getting when Bumblebee is hiding his true intentions. But inside the dome, we're treated with a few interesting little tidbits. For one, Terratronus is completely in stasis. So, completely out to bed. Like, she's just a statue at the moment. We also found out that Starscream is still trapped inside her head. With all of her systems cut off and shut down, he can't go anywhere. He's just stuck inside there. Keep in mind, her system's only open to Terrans. There's no Terrans that are going to let Starscream out of that head. We also found out the whole place is surrounded and filled with chaos energy. So we thought we were done with this. We thought the whole chaos energy thing was going to be over once we got, once we had the Ember Shard reassembled and thus turned to dust afterwards. Apparently not. We are still going to be using this as a plot point, to the point where it's still doing chaos energy stuff, giving them momentary speed boosts and power charges and things like that. We do get a tussle with the Decepticons. It ends when Breakdown actually concocts a scheme with Bumblebee to get out. And for the most part, he seems to be on the up and up. When they get to the comic book shop, he actually helps fight off Skullcruncher. So he really does seem like he's willing to turn on the Decepticons a little bit here. And all of this All of this for the sake of one comic book. That comic book, Transformers issue 5. Not entirely. Not entirely. The cover definitely homages issue 5 of the original Marvel books. One of the most famous visuals in all of Transformers. The Transformers are all dead. But instead of that ominous message, we have a pretty brilliant X-Men homage instead. Kind of awesome, really. I kind of love this. So needless to say, that's the book he needs. Unfortunately, it's not gonna be that easy. Breakdown is siding with the Decepticons. He's Bumblebee's best friend, but they are his family. So we're pulling that trope here. So yeah, this was all a ruse, just to try and get access to the outside world, for the Decepticons to get out of the dome. The interesting thing about this is that Shockwave, incredibly petty because he's holding a comic book hostage to get everyone to do what he says. That's already weird. That's already a little bit odd for Shockwave. But also, he's actually far more amicable in a weird way. We kind of saw that near the end of Season 1, where he was willing to work with the Maltos in order to actually stop, in order to actually, like, help save the world from Mandroid. So we do know this is a little bit of a different Shockwave, and we know he had his disputes with Starscream. They disagreed on the direction for the Decepticons. Well, now we have a Shockwave who's in charge of all the remaining Decepticons, and he's doing things the way he normally does, far more logically. And in this case, his logic is, hold a comic book hostage. It's a cartoon. But rather than coming down to a fight, we have actually agreed that instead, Bumblebee and Breakdown are going to have a race. Which is important. We're reminded in this episode, Bumblebee has never actually beaten Breakdown in a race before. So now, this is for all the marbles. If Bumblebee wins, they get the comic book. They get to walk. If they lose, they have to let the Decepticons out. It's not a bad sequence. I think some of the race sequences in the first season were a little bit better, but it's not a bad race sequence, especially for what this turned into. Because, like, they're squabbling the whole way like brothers, because, like, Bumblebee is very betrayed at this point. It's upsetting. It's upsetting to see the dynamic break down the way it does. Now, the finish of the race does come when, hey, you know that thing we set up in the first act of, like, the chaos energy supercharging our characters and make them faster? That's what gets Bumblebee the win here. So it's not entirely a clean win, but it is the first time Bumblebee has won, and technically it does actually count. And Shockwave actually sticks to his word. Huh. Now, this is Shockwave, who looks at bigger pictures and probably sees this as a minor skirmish and a minor encounter, so not necessarily the most important thing in the world. He's okay with just living to fight another day, and he's okay with actually letting Bumblebee, Thrash, and Mo leave the dome. It's interesting to see Shockwave actually hold to his word like this, when it would have been easy, because Bumblebee was hurting after the race. It would have been easy for them to just shoot everybody down once the dome was open, but no, they let him go. And while, yeah, the B plot is solved, Robbie's happy to have his comic book and see how the story ends, the real plot here is, like, the friendship and of Bumblebee and Breakdown, and its ultimate ruin. It sucks. Like, it's sad to see, because it is a dynamic I really enjoyed, and it's one of the things that makes Earthspark unique, in that you can actually have Decepticons who are amicable because the war is over. But in a situation like this, it sucks. It kind of sucks to see that it just kind of reverts to status quo. I'm glad they at least spent an episode to address it, but it doesn't feel great. It doesn't feel great, unfortunately. It's sad to see. It's a decent story. It's a decent story to tell. Especially because, Earthspark's one of the few places you get to tell it. With that, surprisingly heavy episode, we have to go on to episode 2 of the season, which is Attack of the Drive-In Movie. You can probably guess from the title alone, this ain't gonna be nearly as heavy. So, it starts off with another encounter with Izzy. Robbie's still crushing very heavy. And super nervous about just even asking her to hang out. Which he does eventually get out. He eventually blurts the words out. He's gonna get, actual hangout time with the girl he's crushing on. And Nightshade has conveniently come up with a brand new invention that will actually facilitate this. It's going to be movie night with a 3D projector with particle accelerators, 3D printer technology, VR technology. Nightshade's cobbled a whole bunch of sci-fi stuff together in order to make essentially a fancy film projector. So, it's going to go wrong. Because no one in a Transformers show can invent something in the first act without it going wrong in the second act. That's how it always goes. Now, this would be a cute episode, It's a kid's date, the parents are chaperoning, they just basically just get to hang out and have a date without calling it a date because they are just kids and they are still nervous with each other and, new feelings, etc. And this should be a cute episode. But everybody wants to help out in some way. And I mean everybody wants to help out in some way. Everyone wants to help in some way to try and make the date more interesting, to make the movie more interactive, to see to all their little snack and drink needs, etc. Everyone kind of smothers Robbie at the same time, thinking that they are doing something good to try and make the date night special. And they're just interfering. And it's a very cringe sense of humor that you really have to be into. You have to really like that kind of humor in order to really get laughs out of this. I was just kind of going, you just, no, stop it. You're supposed to be emotionally bonded. You should be able to tell how embarrassed he is right now. Why didn't that come through on the cyber sleeve? I mean, I know Season 2 has different writers. Did they entirely forget that? In fact, no, I know they didn't, because Season 2 included it. The last episode we saw Izzy, no less. And they'll do it again in a future episode in the season. So, for the sake of jokey plot, they just had the sleeve not work this episode, I guess. But it is a very cringe sense of humor that they have for the first half of this episode. You're probably wondering where the plot comes in. Well, the plot comes in when everything with the projector goes wrong. Because of course it does. The little monsters from the movie get out. And once they get out, they keep getting out. They just keep multiplying. The goal now becomes, instead of trying to enhance the date night, it is try to save Robbie's special night by trying to get control of these little tiny munchkins without interrupting the date. Now, to be fair, it actually tends to work out, especially for Izzy. She's kind of passing off all the explosions, all the shaking and all that to essentially just the special effects being really, really good. But it does cause a lot of chaos. And the small ones are not the only monsters. There's also a big one. A big one that can actually pull Robbie and Izzy's SUV into the film. This does lead to an interesting action sequence in a black and white movie where everything looks like a cheap film prop from like the 1940s or 50s, which is kind of hilarious. I love the aesthetic of it, right down to like cardboard cutout actors to kind of fill out scenes. It's a funny gag. This gag I actually really like. And you do get a chase sequence where Robbie and Izzy are trying to outrun the big creature. They do a decent enough job, and that's all well and good. Like it's a fun little like adventure sequence. We're playing with a very classic animation trope. You know, it's not the first time I've seen movie projections come to life in a cartoon. It's also not the first time I've seen characters teleported into said movie in a cartoon. We kind of forgot to mention, there's a bigger monster. And the monster's so big that we can't afford to animate it or show the entire thing. So all we have is this one eye that looks like it's animated purely with keyframing. So yeah, there's a monster nuking the city, which puts them on a very, very crunched time limit in order to get the kids out of the film. Because if the film runs out and they're still in there, they're not going to be able to get them out again. So in the middle of this, of them figuring out how to get Robbie and Izzy out, Robbie and Izzy are having their confessions now. Because I guess when you have a gigantic Godzilla-like creature raining thermonuclear death on an entire city around you, you kind of pick now to get brave with your emotions. But because this is a cartoon that runs on very typical tropes, they get out, pulled out of the movie just before an actual kiss happens. The day is saved. Robbie does get one on the cheek. So he officially has a girlfriend. Alright, so they paid that they're paying off that storyline, which is good to see. Oh, and it will play such a factor in this season. The episode itself is not terribly great. It is very much a filler episode. Well, it feels filler. You will find out later on it ain't. But the point being, it's trying to be a fun episode, but it is a very cringy kind of humor episode where a lot of kids are going to be fine with that. An adult watching, you gotta be down for it. You gotta know what you're getting into and be into it. Honestly, the absolute best part of the episode, Frenzy and Laserbeak. They're watching from the other side of the dome, and they're heckling. They're heckling and being trolls in the way that only Earthspark, Laserbeak, and Frenzy can be trolls, and it's wonderful to see. I feel like for the more grown-up fans that are watching, these are providing more humor for us rather than the more kid-centric humor that we were getting elsewhere. So you know what? Fair. But yeah, that is episode 1 and 2 of season 3. It's interesting. In season 1, I could kind of tie things together and kind of like see where there's an overarching theme between two episodes. If there's one here, it's heart. Because Bumblebee has his heart broken by someone he considered a brother. And Robbie, his heart's glowing right now as he has found a girlfriend. So we have heartbreak and a very full heart back to back. And I think that's appropriate. And especially a heavy episode followed by a very comedic episode. Yeah, you actually do get a nice mix here. So I will give this credit. It's a good pair of episodes if you watch them together. The B movie episode might be a little bit rough on its own. But there you go. That is episode 1 and 2 of season 3 of Earthspark. As usual, I'll be doing these maybe like once a week because I don't want to like take forever like I did last time. I kind of want to like bang these out this time. So, as usual, I still recommend this show. I still think it's way better than a lot of people give it credit for. And we will talk about it again soon. So, thank you everyone for watching. I will see you next time.